Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, the Braves have finally played their cards right.
And the Falcons have two key players back at practice today. Maybe we'll see them on Sunday. What kind of impact might that have on the Falcons' game plan for the Packers?
And last but not least, and for the culture, Shedeur making how much?
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. Wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up in 10 minutes, CP84, CB2 on their way back. We'll talk about it. But first, we have to talk about the Braves last night. They get the dub last night, 7-6 in 10 innings. Eddie Rosario coming through with the runner already on base with that crazy behind rule. Hey, the Braves took advantage of it and they get dubbed. The magic number is now 2T, but I think the 1A story, because we already know what 1B story is. We'll talk about Matt Olson in just a bit, but that 1A story for me has to be the ace of this staff, Max Fried, putting together another sweet outing, going 5 innings and only giving up 1 run.
Yeah, and old Maximus, I'm sure, wanted to maximize pimp slapping some people that came behind him and almost blew everything that he did.
Gosh. Yes, that's the perfect way of putting it. About
yes,
pimp slapping. Like yes, that's what they needed.
Exactly.
Joe Jimenez,
magnificent.
Come on now.
Yes,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, literally, I'm sure he just wanted to, and I don't want to be violent, but if he would have chosen violence against most of the pen, other than AJ Minter and of course Brad Hand, we would have all understood. Because if you can go 5 innings and just again, and we got to think about the fact that in the first 2 games, it was like a human highlight reel as far as home runs and just runs, period, right?
Yes.
So for Max Fried to somehow keep that to 1, especially Jarvis, to keep it to 1 run, especially when you see that he and Zach Wheeler were going toe-to-toe for four innings, right? Oh, both of them gave up 1 run, and then all of a sudden, the top of the 5th happened, and it was all she wrote for Wheeler. So that, to me, is even more of a compliment to Max Fried and just how great it was last night, and also being able to get 6 strikeouts and only 4 hits. I mean, it was just a really, really great inning, and once again tells you, and this to me is also a great thing. For the most part, Jarvis, maybe except 1 game, since Max Fried has been back from IL, he has really, really shown up and seems to just be 100% of himself. That is so critical going into these final couple of weeks.
Yeah, like in his last 5 starts, he's only had like a 2.73 ERA. Absolutely just amazing. I love the way the Braves handled this injury situation. They didn't rush him back. They played their cards right. They didn't go out and go try to get somebody to try to be a hired hand or anything after the at the trade deadline. I absolutely love the way the Braves have handled this. Once again, Anthopoulos played his cards right, and now they're reaping the benefits of it with their ace of the staff ready to roll come October. Now, Matt Olson, excuse me, put his name in the record books, at least the franchise record books last night. He tied Andrew Jones, 51 home runs last night. Like, this got to be the most quietest MVP candidate you'll probably ever meet in life.
Oh, yeah. He literally is like a marquee where if you're going to a concert, it says Ronald Acuna Jr. featuring Matt Olson. That's how it feels.
Yes.
Like that kind of marquee. And it's just unbelievable that you could have 52 runs. And also, I think he's up to 128 RBI. So that's another thing that we talked about even yesterday. And now here again today, he's leading the majors in that as well. And one of the low-key things that has been an undercurrent of how he's been able to be so successful, especially the back half of the season, is limiting the strikeouts, understanding that we know you're a power hitter, but not every ball is going to go out of the park, and you don't have to chase every ball to try to get it out of the park. If you can make contact, especially with the two, and I say two in particular because I'm talking about Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies and their ability to get on base and steal base, right? So if you've got those two ahead of you, and in some instances where others like Michael Harris II were put in that 2-hole, you've got fast guys who can get there, just make contact with the ball and get some runs driven in. That to me, the lack of strikeouts and the increase in the RBI accompanying the increase in the home runs, I think that's the full story of what Matt Olson can do. And Max Fried talked about it as well. Don't forget how well he plays defense at first base.
Absolutely. He's a Gold Glove type player at that position. So kind of remind you of somebody else. I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name. I don't know.
Yeah.
But T, to your point, last 10 games, 8 home runs, 16 RBIs. Yeah, just that's how he rolls. Like it's September, T. So at some point, the professional basketball team is going to start playing.
Yes, and
Atlanta Hawks.
Right. And I'm so sorry. I got to say this because if I didn't say it, you'd be like, how did we forget to say that? Ronald Acuna Jr., I think it's his 152nd run. So he surpassed Dale Murphy because, of course, he had a home run last night, too.
132nd.
Yeah, exactly. So having the most runs in a season, and we still have 2 weeks of the season left. So we'd be remiss if we didn't mention him because, like we said, he's big on the marquee, and he's big on the marquee because of things like that he did.
Absolutely. And Trae Young hopes to be big on the marquee and having an MVP type of season.
Indeed.
That would be absolutely amazing. But there was an interesting article that wrote about, the Hawks as a whole and kind of where they are as an organization. And we kind of have conversations about this because they're kind of like, at the end of the day, right now, they're kind of in the middle. They're kind of in the middle, right? We don't think they are contenders, but we don't think they are a team that are going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick, right? So I think that, and this article kind of spoke to that. But for me, T, I think about where the Hawks are. They basically traded away John Collins. That was their big time move in the offseason and re-signed DeJounte Murray to a very pretty much team-friendly deal. And when you think about those moves and what Quinn Snyder brings to the table, are you in a space where to say, hey, this is enough for them at least to be in the conversation, to be in the top half of a playoff seed?
I think they could. It really depends. I think a lot still depends on what happens with Dame Lillard and whether or not Miami gets that much better or whether or not they stand pat, which Pat is still really good. But that to me is one of those dominoes that has to fall because they're kind of in the middling, right? In that middling space, because you're going to have the Celtics, you're going to have the Bucks. And then it becomes, okay, now who's 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th? I mean, literally anybody could be 3 to 8
Absolutely.
in the East. So because anybody can be anywhere between 3 and 8 in the East, why not have that conversation to say maybe the Hawks can, like you said, get up into that top 4. That way, at least they can host an opening round series, which would be great. Right. But I think that someone like Quinn Snyder, he's saying, and he talked about this on the Steakhouse over at 92.9 yesterday, how and that was the direct question, like based on all the moves that everyone else made in the offseason in the East, where do you think the Hawks kind of stack up? And basically he said he feels like there's enough growth and evolution that can take place with the roster that they have to be able to contend. To me, that sounds like a competent coach that has seen enough in the 22 regular season games.
That sounds like a whip it out coach.
No question. Competent enough right. And that's a part of his coaching. That's
the framing of that, but that's what that sounds like to me. Yeah, for sure. I'm with you.
Well, yeah, it does. It does sound like someone who believes in their coaching ability and their ability to get the very best out of every player, because he did say also that every single player, not just Trae, but every single player has to step up their game in order for them to be successful this season.
Yeah, it has to be internal growth because, like I said, they haven't made the necessary moves let me not say necessary moves. They haven't made the moves that would appear, at least on paper, that they're going to be contenders in the Eastern Conference. So I think right now, I mean, they have no choice but to bank on it because financially, we don't even know if they had the okay to go try to make those moves, T. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we
we're
got an
still.
answer too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. There's still conjecture on did they or did they not? Like, what was the reality of it? Did they actually go after Pascal Siakam? Did they actually have a good chance at him? And that's just one example. But yeah, maybe Coach Quinn Snyder is also looking at moves like we only know of one so far this season, right? Well, two. One started before the season ended and one came during the summer. The move that started during the season was the Onyeka Okongwu really working with Kyle Korver and some of the other players working with him just to get a jump shot and really kind of evolve their offensive game. And then Jalen Johnson going and working out with LeBron James. Now, that's huge. I mean, because you're going to the best of the best and saying, hey, I really want to evolve my game. How do I get it done? So if everybody can do what Double O and Jalen did over the summer to get themselves exponentially better, to your point, Jarvis, then at least on paper, we got a conversation.
I want to trust their evaluations. I want to trust their eyeballs because Jalen Johnson, I've gotten a peek into what they think he might be, but I want to see it. I want to see it on the court, and I want everybody to be able to see, you know what, man, this Jalen Johnson dude is the real deal. That's probably why they didn't trade for Pascal Siakam. Not saying he's going to be on the all-pro level, but like I said, that internal growth is the key, and we will definitely keep an eye on that as we get closer to the NBA season. Folks, I want to let you know that this episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is the #1 sportsbook in America. Guess what? What they have for all you new customers, all you new people who haven't come to the website just yet. What are you waiting on? I'm tired of you folks not going to this website. So I need you to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and check out the bet $5 and get 200 in bonus bets back. Guaranteed. Yes, all you got to do is drop $5. Plus, on top of that, whoever bets $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You want to be able to watch the Falcons in Washington, D.C. or in New York or California on your phone or whatever, however, go ahead and do it. And you're going to get $100 off. All you got to do is drop $5 on bet and get that 200 in bonus bets and then get your $100 off NFL Sunday Tickets. So now is the best time to join FanDuel because the app is safe, it's super easy to use, and you can bet on anything from the player props to the spreads to much, much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel is the official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL.
Now, if you were someone who bet on Cordarrelle Patterson coming back this week, good for you. But if you were like Jarvis and me, you were not betting on Jeff Okudah coming back this week, right? We really thought that with that injury, 4 weeks was probably the safest expectation to maybe see him come back in week 5. Well, got confirmation that both Jeff Okudah and Cordarrelle Patterson are at practice today. And those are both good signs because if you're at practice on the day when installs truly start to get up and running, that's a great, great sign. Now, it'll be interesting to see because, of course, we get the injury report after practice. It'll be interesting to see if they were limited in their practice, full participation. I would expect limited today and maybe full tomorrow and or Friday. But Jarvis, just on the surface, how important or impactful could it be to get Jeff Okudah and Cordarrelle Patterson back for Sunday?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm going to start with Cordarrelle Patterson because I believe that he's the one that's more likely to play because when you think about the certain moves that they made, Igwebuike, my guy, Godwin, he got released. So, you know, when you think about because Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be a kickoff return, right? And he was Igwebuike was back there returning kicks on Sunday. So you kind of like, okay, you kind of put two and two together. Like the math is going to bore out to Cordarrelle Patterson being on that field on Sunday. Right. With him being out there, I really feel like that is like I think that we're going to really find out what a joker position, right? And what does that mean on the offensive side of football? It's been used on the defensive side of football, but we haven't really seen it used on the offensive side of the football. So I think that he's going to be another weapon, another piece that Arthur Smith can use in order to throw the defenses off because I like how Arthur Smith in his offense, he works a lot of formations, a lot of 12 personnel. We saw a lot of 13 personnel on Sunday. I'm waiting for the 14. He said he was going to do it. He said it's a possibility, T. I asked him personally. I was like, hey, man, you going to throw some 14 personnel out there? Oh, no, we might do that. So, you know, Arthur Smith, Like, I think the creativity is going to be there when you have a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson, because he can line up at wide receiver, because he line up at running back, and hey, he can line up close to the line of scrimmage because he's a little chunky too. Hey, he can put his hands on you. He's willing to block as well. So it's so many things that you can do when you have a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson in that lineup. I just think there's going to be something that Arthur Smith can have fun with. Like, he can. It's another toy in the toolbox.
Indeed. And I think for CP as well, in addition to what he can do in the return game, if he's lined up as a receiver, maybe he can give you some of those blocks that you didn't quite get from Drake London last week. And so, like you said, him being more of a stout guy, he could kind of give you something.
Got to get him involved, T. I'm gonna make one excuse for him for this year. No more for the rest of the season. You got to get him involved.
Yes, you do. And that's what I was going to say. Maybe if he doesn't have to focus on blocking, maybe that'll give him an opportunity. If you put CP out there as a decoy or / a blocker, maybe that'll give Drake London an opportunity to get his hands on the ball a little bit more, because to your point, it's not his fault that he was only targeted twice and caught one ball. Like, you have to be targeted more than 2 times in order for you to get more than one catch in all likelihood. So yeah, I think that Cordarrelle Patterson would be the more likely to come back this coming Sunday, and B, because of that, he'll probably be the most impactful. But if Jeff Okudah
no catches on Sunday. No catches on Sunday. He didn't catches on Sunday. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. So, and if you look at
Desmond Ridder had one more catch. You know, a reporter, I ain't gonna say his name, asked Arthur Smith about that after the game. So I'm just like, all right, bro, what we doing here? But anyway, yeah. Continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So with Jeff Okudah, now, of course, probably sitting at a 40-60 chance for him to come back, mostly 69. But if he actually does get back on the field, even if in limited situations, how important would it be to get him back, or impactful would it be to get him back?
Oh, it'd be great. I mean, because we saw the secondary look pretty doggone solid on Sunday. Like, when outside of, Bryce Young having a little bit more time than normal to throw the football, we saw those guys out there covering. AJ Terrell looked solid. Even Trey Flowers, he had a couple moments here with some penalties that were very questionable, but I think overall he played pretty solid. And then you had Mike Hughes, who was out. So I think that if you get a guy like Mike Hughes back, you get a guy like Jeff Okudah back, you talking about that secondary that we were saying that had the most depth on the defense from a positional standpoint, right? So I think right now, if Jeff Okudah comes back, I really feel like we're gonna get a good picture as to what Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith and Ryan Nielsen, what they all envisioned when they brought all these guys in.
Yeah, I would say the same. And yeah, I thought that they definitely did a solid job without Jeff Okudah. And who knows, they may actually have a less than perfect Packers receiving core than what the Bears had to deal with, because of course, right now, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, because we'll have more information about whether or not Aaron Jones is closer to being a go or not being a go. So some of that can actually work in the Falcons' favor. Not that you ever want anyone to be injured, but just in terms of if you can go 1 or 2 more games without Jeff Okudah and make sure that he's truly back to 100%, because you feel like you have enough in the secondary that you are putting on the field now to be able to handle the Packers, then I think you hold him out that 1 more week and just let him get as close as he can to 100%.
Yeah, I mean, because like you can afford to do it, right? Because it looks solid with him, with Jeff Okudah not being in there this week. It was fine. And like, hey, you can bank on that for at least one or 2 more weeks, or however long Jeff Okudah is going to be out, because we still don't know, how y'all get away with this type of stuff. But anyway, but yes, to your point, I think that is something that, the Falcons can afford to let him sit a little bit. Like, Cornell Armstrong sitting right there ready to go in the back end.
Yeah. And I think too, if you get what you need up front, then that makes it easier on your secondary anyway. And that's something we will definitely dive into tomorrow, because we definitely have to talk about a very daunting task that both the defensive front, look, the whole defense has a challenge coming up with the Packers this week, but we'll dig more into the defensive front and what they have the biggest challenge for them. Now, speaking of that, scheming can always be an interesting thing, right? Scheming
Yeah.
from one week to another. And, some people, especially in the first half, some people were booing that Arthur Smith was calling too many vanilla plays, that things were not complex enough and they didn't like his play calling. And in the second half, people seemed to be more comfortable with his play calling. Also, Ryan Nielsen was called out a little bit for the first half because people were not understanding what's up with all these substitutions, right? And then he tweaked some things in that second half that really slowed the Panthers down. So when you look at a high level, the schemes, if you will, do you maybe see, other than the tweaks that you make from week to week for the Packers, my question is more of, do you see changes in the schemes based on, hey, we've now been able to see Desmond Ridder this season in action, so we kind of know if we can throw some more stuff at him. And then on the defensive side, okay, we saw that we threw some people out there to see what they can do. And now that we can see what some can do and some can't, that might inform us on schemes as well.
Yeah, I definitely think the latter is true. When you talk about what the Carolina Panthers were able to do in that first half, and I talked about how they look like a preseason offense in that first half of the season, because you saw Chris Lindstrom getting handled by Derek Brown. I know a lot of people were pointing that out and getting concerned. Calm down. That guy showed me from day one that he understands how to recover. He knows how to make necessary adjustments. And you saw a little bit of it in the second half of that game. So I don't think that they're going to be handcuffed like they were in that first half, because I know Rashawn Gary is a solid edge rusher and everything like that, but he ain't no Brian Burns. Right. Brian Burns gonna make $25 to $30 million a year annually. The way he played last week. And then Derek Brown is just an absolute man. I know Kenny Clark is solid, but he is no Derek Brown. Yeah. So I think just for those reasons, for the defensive front that they're going to be going up against, I don't think they're going to be probably closer to the second half of that game versus the first half of that game. Because here's the thing. Arthur Smith is not going to put Desmond Ridder in a situation to where he can make mistakes. He's not going to do it. I promise you, folks. He's not going to do it. He's going to call plays accordingly. Now, you may or may not like that, but that's kind of what it is, because he is trying to do what necessary is to win games. Because I even go back to 2021 when he first came in. They could not run the football. They just couldn't do it. So that's why they dropped back the pass, and because they had a guy like Matt Ryan, who's a veteran, and he can slang that bad boy. Yeah. Now, the offensive line wasn't all that great, but he had to do what he had to do to try to win some games. They ended up winning 7 games, throwing the ball all over the yard. And teams knowing that, hey, this team can't run the football against us. So, yeah, we're going to have to defend the pass. So I think that it's a chess match. It's going to be a week-to-week thing as far as what this game plan looks like and what Desmond Ridder, as far as how many passes he's going to throw. Will he throw 18 or will he throw 15 or will he throw 25? I think and I think the answer to that question is, okay, can Green Bay hold up against the pass? They got some guys, pretty good doggone players in that secondary. So, hey, guess what we're going to do? We're going to do what we do best, and that's run the football.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that running the football is still going to be their bread and butter at the end of the day. I do see, like you said, that Desmond Ridder probably won't hover around 15 passes, if you will, probably get more in that 20-25 range. Yeah. But ultimately speaking, I think that now Arthur Smith and Dave Ragone have seen what they needed to see out of Desmond Ridder, because I think that's the critical piece. Even things like, okay, maybe, you drop back to pass and you didn't see that rush coming, and then you kind of made a rash decision on where you threw the ball, but then give you a whole bunch of credit. Bijan Robinson couldn't catch the ball where he did to go 11 yards for the touchdown if you didn't see him out there by himself to say, oh, okay, that's where I'm going to go. So still he's able to get to that line of scrimmage and still have better vision that's improving week by week. So I think that's why they might throw some different wrinkles in there this Sunday, because maybe they've seen enough for him to say, hey, now we can add to the playbook for him coming up against the Packers. But let's hear from you guys. What do you think about CP coming back this week every day? Or do you think that's possible? How do you think it's going to impact the game? What about Jeff Okudah? Are they okay? Are the Falcons okay if he doesn't come back? Or do they need him to come back now because of all that we saw in that 38 points that the Packers put on the Bears last week? Don't forget to put the comments in our comment section on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to download ATL Day Ones wherever you get your podcasts.
But T, this is for the culture, this intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about. Because that's just how we get down on the show. Today is no different. T, when you think about like prime, Deion Sanders, head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, he literally has taken an irrelevant team that no one was talking about, no one cared about, and he has been the storyline for the first 2 weeks of the college football season. But I think he's been upended because Shedeur Sanders, T, I don't know if you know, the man is running up draft boards right now.
Yeah.
And I think even Mel Kiper got him ranked as QB3 at this point, right? First round draft pick. But before he even get to the NFL, before we even get to the NFL draft, they're saying that he is now projected to make $4.1 million in NIL this season, T. That's more than 1,500 players in the NFL. Like, do you see a problem with this?
I do, but it's going to be very difficult to police. Very, very difficult to police because my goodness, we talked about it before. Yes, we do definitely think that we both think there needs to be some type of framework put in place to help most players. Now, the good thing about Shedeur Sanders is he doesn't need as many of those parameters put in place because Deion is a very intelligent man, right? And he's going to make sure that his son does the right thing with his money in anticipation of just life after football, right? Because you just never know. So he'll be fine. Also, if he never made a penny or if he just made $1,000 from the NIL, he'd be fine. But it still goes back to the right. It still goes back to the rest of these guys. And it actually makes me think about the WNBA versus the NBA, right? Where the WNBA, they're making like pennies. And no, the NBA wouldn't be making nickels to their pennies or dimes or quarters to their pennies. They'd be making like $10 to every penny they make. That's kind of the comparison. So yeah,
or even $100.
Yeah, it could conceivably be right. So his 4.1 mil, to me, it's like, it's a problem because I mean he's only a sophomore at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a problem. And the other piece there is, or junior rather, but the other piece there with him is how do you navigate it with the rest of the team, right? Because sometimes, and this is just me, I know that Deion Sanders is the story, which means by default, somewhat, Shedeur is the story as well. But I guess my thought is, I hope that this doesn't kind of rattle the cages of the rest of the players because there's so much attention and so much energy on both of them. So I'm just hoping, again, looking at it from another angle, that at least, hey, like Shedeur said, and he said this when he was with Jackson State, when he got this huge NIL deal, he went out and I think he purchased something for just about everybody on the team. Well, everybody on the team.
He did.
So if he keeps that mentality, that mindset, I think he'll be fine because that makes people feel like, hey, we were a part of your success because if this O-line didn't block, you wouldn't have the time to make your reads. And if your receivers weren't where they needed to be, you wouldn't be able to get 500 yards passing, right? So I think
or transfer to a Power 5 conference and all of a sudden become an amazing quarterback.
Right. Which didn't happen. You were that already. Right. So I think that at the end of the day, if they navigate it properly, it should be fine as it relates to how it impacts the team or the program. But it does bring back the question of how in the world is this ever going to be policed, especially because think about here locally. Dylan Raiola is getting paid. He's a high schooler.
Yeah.
KJ Bolden is getting paid. He's a high schooler.
This is going to be, I absolutely love it because it's basically like chaos. I love organized chaos because, hey, at the end of the day, like most of these players, I'm assuming that, they have some representation, something, some person of some ilk that can actually go over a contract and everything like that and kind of make sure everything's on up and up. But I think that what's happened in the college football world, this is what a free market looks like. And I'm all for these guys getting as much money as possible because the NFL ain't guaranteed, folks. Like we're talking about 1%.
No. Even down to Shador.
Right.
You never ever know.
Yeah. Your career might get ended tomorrow. Now, God, I pray that does not happen for Shador.
Sure.
I want to see him play as long as he possibly can.
Right.
But that what situation that happened on Monday night with Aaron Rodgers, that's real. That is real. Now, he's made a poop ton of money, and he's going to go into the Hall of Fame and all that stuff, but I'm sure Aaron was looking to prove himself, with another team and take another team to a Super Bowl and be beloved in New York, just like Joe Namath was or is to this day. So I think that go out there and get your money.
Yeah, you have to.
And you got it. You have to. And don't compare it to the NFL because NFL has a salary cap. That's why the owners have a salary cap because of stuff like this, because they don't want guys to just be able to make whatever money and that whatever person signs the next, there's no cap on it. It's just like, all right. Are you next in line? Like Sam Bradford, I think was the last guy to get that crazy deal from being drafted number 1 overall.
Right.
And then Cam Newton was sitting up here like, dang, Sam Bradford got all that bread. Like, I'm much better than him. So that's why they put the whole rookie scale in because of that. So it's like anytime, but I think that the difference between NFL and NCAA is the fact that NCAA ain't trying to put no money into hire some people to come up with a structure and to be able to control that. So that's why I say it's going to be free willy until it ain't free willy no more.
But the sad thing about it is they actually have programs that could work because the NFL, I believe, and the NBA and Major League Baseball, they all have player development programs that I believe were actually built off of what the NCAA had. So there are programs out there to help guys to say, hey, what if you don't make it to the league? Like, how are you going to utilize your money? What's your career? What's life after college football or college sports? So they have programs in place. The problem is the NCAA has no power. They have no ability to enforce anything. So that goes back to your comment about how important and vital and viable it is to have the chaos, because the chaos actually is going to explode and force someone somewhere to say, okay, enough. Yeah. All right, enough. Yeah. We've got to fix this. So you kind of sometimes have to blow stuff up and just let it fall to pieces so that the powers that be, it'll get their attention to say, okay, all right, we do have to allow them to make money off their name, image, and likeness, because these programs wouldn't be what they are without these student athletes. But we also have to regulate this thing because this is too much like the Wild Wild West. So I think you absolutely have to have something in place. But I do like what's happening, and I do like that there's information out there that tells you, Shador's got $4.1 million coming his way, because those are the types of things that also keep the conversation going about what restrictions are needed for college sports, and hey, let's face it, for high school sports as well, because GHSSA or GHSAA, they're looking at this. They're looking at this to try to figure out, is there any way that they can put some restrictions on it? But you know what? It's not restricted. The Braves' ability to get a 6th National League East title. If they can pull off a win tonight, with Spencer Strider on the mound, game over. So Christopher Sanchez is who he'll be facing off against. It's a 6:40 first pitch. So, hey, maybe we can actually watch the game and not fall asleep before it ends. But anyway, hopefully those guys can get it done tonight. And it would be so sweet, because we know that the Phillies are a team that sometimes feels like they have their number. And so it'd be great if they could just win the series. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. Any other developments that come out of Flowery Branch from practice today, we got the tea on it. And anything else that's coming out of the world of sports here in Atlanta, that we will bring that to you.
And make sure you guys share love, show love, and most importantly, spread some love.